what happened, the impact of Hurricane Matthew 2016. So this is Hurricane Matthew. It started to come up the coast in early October. This picture of the storm shows that the storm is about 250 miles wide. It's roughly the distance of the state of Pennsylvania. So from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia is about how wide this storm is. It did quite a bit of damage down in Haiti and Cuba before it started to come up the eastern coast of the United States. Here in North Carolina, we started seeing rain about Thursday afternoon. As you can see, it travels up. It was a category 4 and then 3. Notice when it's alongside of South Carolina and North Carolina, it was still considered a hurricane. As it made that sharp right turn and started to go back out to sea, it then became a tropical storm again before it looped back around and ended as a tropical depression. We see that it was a Category 1 hurricane when it was parallel to our coast in Wilmington about Saturday night at 8 o'clock. When it was here at 8 o'clock Saturday evening and through Sunday, we received 9.5 inches of rain. We know that with this rain that falls all at once, we have two different kinds of flooding. The first kind of flooding that we have is flash floods. And a flash flood is typically caused by sudden excessive rainfall that sends a river, stream, or other body of water rapidly out of its banks, which means it overflows. This happens in a very short amount of time, and it only happens for a very small amount of time, a few hours or less. It's really frightening because the water rises so fast, so rapidly. Most of the time we see flash floodings when we have torrential downpours, which means a lot of rain in a short amount of time. These are also very dangerous because this water moves quickly and it's fast and very powerful. So it can sweep whole roads away. It can also sweep cars away with just a little bit of water. We saw this in Princeville Saturday evening, and some residents were evacuated Saturday because of this flash flood. The other kind of floods that we see are floods that take over dry land, which means a river will have so much water that it overflows its banks and takes up all of the land around it. Sometimes it happens because of excessive rain, a ruptured dam or levee, rapid ice melting from like the mountains, and then sometimes even blocks in rivers can cause it to happen. And where it floods, it's called a floodplain. Coastal flooding happens, that's like in the beach when we have storms and all of that water rushes on. The biggest thing to remember about floods is that they happen over time. The water swells and grows, and as that water grows, it takes over more land. So that gives residents time to get out. We know that floods are coming. So this is a picture of Tarboro, and this is what was expected to happen. So this picture is really important for a couple of reasons. I want you to see that this is the Tar River that runs here, all through here. And if you look closely, this is Patillo, right up here. Right there's Patillo. And what they were expecting early on was that this floodplain here was going to be filled with water. Some parts of Tarboro would get flooded, a little bit across the roadway where it's low. But for the most part, the dike that they rebuilt in '99 after Hurricane Floyd would hold the water out of Princeville, and there would be a little bit of flooding in Tarboro, but not too much. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Because the flooding rose and we saw Tarboro start to take on, we also saw other areas like Kinston, Lumberton take on large amounts of water. President Obama signed a declaration of disaster on October 10th, which was Monday. Throughout the week, that waters rose. Roy Cooper and Pat McCrory, both our governor candidates for North Carolina, attended came to the shelters and visited during this time. So now let's look at specifically what happened. So we know that 9.5 inches of rain fell between Saturday, well, really Thursday, right? And Sunday, about 8 a.m. The river at that time was 24 feet, which is considered moderate flood stage. The Tar River starts to overcome its banks. This is the Tar River in our picture. It starts to overflow its banks at 19 feet. So on Sunday, we were at 24 feet. That was when Princeville's town government, decided that they were going to evacuate the town because flooding could possibly happen. So what happened was they gave the order about 2:15 Sunday. They told everyone to start packing up and leaving. Buses came between 4:30 and 5:30 and shuttled all residents to the shelter that was now set up by the Red Cross at Tarboro High. So as the day went on, Monday, we see that parts of East Tarboro have started to flood. We look at St. James Street, we look at East Street, Wilson Street. Those River Road was completely flooded. Come Monday, the water was up to 29 feet at that point in time. And remember that flooding started happening past its banks, past 19 feet. Moderate flood stage was 24 feet. Major flood stage was 30 feet. Tuesday morning was the first anticipated crest time. That crest was supposed to be at 34 feet. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We know that floods happen in floodplains. Princeville and parts of East Tarboro are considered a floodplain because of their elevation. Princeville's elevation is 30 feet. Tarboro's elevation is 43 feet, which means they're very close to sea level. So when water goes outside of these rivers, they're looking for the lowest ground to go to. So they go to those areas. Water continued to rise. The levees, the dikes that we can see, continued to hold that water back. This is part of the dike in Princeville. We can see this is part of the dike. It continued to hold. Wednesday, the water was at 35.2 feet, and it was still rising. They expected the water to go up to 36.2 feet over the next day or two. That water did reach 36.2 feet on Friday. However, Thursday, the dike was breached. And you can see that this is the point where the dike breached. The water just came so far out of the banks that the levee couldn't hold it anymore, and it went around the gate in the levee. The water then came into Princeville. The water came in Thursday and Friday until it reached that cresting point. And then it kind of stopped and stayed at that point for a while in both Princeville and Tarboro before it started to recede. We did know that the waters in Princeville, because it is a low-lying area, would take a while. So the National Guard did come in with big, huge pumps that pumped out water at 1,000 gallons per hour over the next few days. By Tuesday evening, the water was out of Princeville, and the town government, meaning the mayor and the town councilman, were able to then go and tour Princeville and see what was happening with the town. The people are still evacuated. We know that some areas of Tarboro have been inspected. different markings on the doors would mean different things. Green means people are clear to go back into the house. Yellow means some damage has taken place and some work has to happen before people go back in. And red means that house is now condemned and people can't go back in. So this process will now start to take place in Princeville as it is taking place in Tarboro over the next coming days. So this is a wrap-up of what happened in Hurricane Matthew over the last 2 weeks' time. We hope you can use this information to now create a timeline of the events that happened in Hurricane Matthew.